Let's talk all about AI in business. It's hosted by Brent Muller. Welcome to the Future Proof Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of the Future Proof Podcast. I'm your host, Brent Muller, and I'm joined today by Craig Ceccarelli from Basement Fix. Craig, great to have you.
Thanks. Great to be here.
So, Craig, the first thing we want to do is just talk to us about your background, how you got into the home services space and really the basement industry, and just kind of talk to us about like kind of your path leading up as a founder.
Well, I was out of college. I was having trouble finding a job. It was 1989, and it was just a tough time. And I ended up getting a job at Radio Shack as an assistant manager. And I'd never used a computer
Blast
before.
from the past, right? Radio Shack.
Yeah, it was the first time I was ever on the internet, was in the store. And I was blown away by it. I thought I would hate computers. I ended up really liking them. But anyways, I got into another tech company, a startup, and I got out of there like in 94 because I just couldn't take sitting around in front of a computer monitor all day. It just wasn't for me. And I had bought a house, and I had a home inspection done on the house I was buying. And I paid the guy like $250 for an hour and a half of work. And I was like, this is the way to make money. This is a great lifestyle. So when I wanted to start my own business, one of the franchises that popped up out of the franchise book was a home inspection franchise called Housemaster.
I know Housemasters, yeah.
Yeah. So I started a Housemaster franchise. I didn't do the inspections, but I started it, and I did the marketing. I didn't know when I got it that it was all going to be me doing the marketing. I had a completely different idea how it would operate, but it was getting out there.
You're not the only franchise owner or buyer that's been the case, right? Yeah. I have several friends, the same thing happened. So good for you.
When they told me I had to cold call real estate companies, I was just like, oh, I don't know if this is for me. But anyways, I was stuck in it because I put my life savings into it. So I did it, and we grew it. And then I grew it some more, and I sold it. And then I started another one in Ann Arbor without the franchise. And I did that for about 15 years. But along the way, I was sort of keeping a list of home improvement companies that I could recommend to clients. I was like my own little Angie's List.
But yeah, before Angie's probably started, right?
Yeah. And could never find a good basement waterproofing company or foundation repair company. Or I should back that up. When I did find a good one, it was usually like an older guy that had been doing it for 30 years. And if you got on his schedule, it was a year and a half out for him to get out there. He just wasn't into duplicating his crews. So there was a lot of foundation repair and waterproofing going on in my area. And they were usually getting taken by salespeople and, companies that were kind of sleazy. It was a kind of a sleazy industry.
Yeah.
So thought this might be an opportunity here. 2001, approximately, I added additional services, getting into basement waterproofing. And then it quickly grew way beyond home inspection. So I eventually had to drop the home inspection part and just focus on waterproofing and foundation repair.
Well, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
And so that was 15 years ago where that switch happened?
Well, that was 2001 that I added in the waterproofing, but I was still doing both. Sort of the home inspection was funding the basement waterproofing company kind of a thing.
Right.
But the pivotal point in the basement waterproofing company was when I had heard about Google AdWords at the time and websites. Like, we didn't have a website. Nobody did. It was all yellow pages.
Right.
And I stayed up for a couple of weeks late at night making this website by myself. And then
which was not easy then.
No, it was rough. It was.
There's no WordPress then. There was no Wix, right?
Yeah. That website was hilarious, but the AdWords blew me away. That was like somebody flipped a switch on to the marketing, and all of a sudden we just took off with jobs and leads and growth. I forget what year that was, but it was early 2000s somewhere where AdWords came into existence.
Yeah.
So that's what got it going, was marketing and Google AdWords. They don't call it AdWords now, but that's what it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, no kidding. So fast forward now, right? So you've obviously grown Basement Fix, to a good level. So the question is like, what do you, where now? Because again, it's way more competitive, the home services, right? Before we get into private equity and all that, let's talk about, marketing in general. What have you seen, right, from the competitive landscape? Because AdWords is not as easy as it used to be, right? Because there's more players in the space and more people doing it. So how has your marketing changed since the early days?
Well, it's rough to compete on AdWords by Google Ads now, that's called. It's really rough to compete. And it's a very complicated platform. And a few years ago, they added artificial intelligence to the whole thing, to your bidding process.
It changed a
And
lot.
you might as well be a derivatives trader on foreign exchange currency, because you need a degree in statistics and mathematics and numbers to figure it all out. But basically, you have to trust Google to run your campaigns for you. And we spent just under $1 million last year with Google.
Wow.
And allowing a computer to run your budgets and campaigns and bids is scary. But that's where the nature of everything's going. But everybody now can have artificial intelligence run their bidding platforms. So it's like one computer bidding against another computer. The end result is a lead. Just to get us a lead where we can knock on somebody's door is over $300.
Wow.
Where back in the day, $25 was maybe the max.
Normal. Right. The
Yeah.
max, right? Yeah. You were probably getting, tons of leads at that.
Yeah. I mean, not every sector of the home improvement company is the same level, but I have heard similar things with roofing companies, windows, siding.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So now we've had to grow past just plugging money into Google's Performance Max.
Yep.
And because everybody else has got Performance Max. So
yeah. Right. So what about the other competitive space? And again, anyone that does a Google search now knows that the ads have been pushed back under the AI, right, stuff. So it's even harder, right? So how have you adapted with that and then the Maps listings, right? Because the Google Maps is also a big source of leads for people searching.
It's funny you mention that, because that's been my project for the last month, is optimizing our Google Maps and maybe coming up with more locations. So that's more of a get on the road, find an office, rent an office, make it a real physical location, and get another Google Maps location, because you can't cheat Google. They'll
Right.
catch up. So
They
everything's
will.
got to be completely legit. But what's really dominated our industry as far as leads go are what they call lead aggregators.
I was just going to ask that next. So I'm glad you
Yep.
said that. Yeah. Tell me how that's changed the landscape.
Well, you've got super smart people at these lead aggregator things, and they know how to get the most bang for the buck. Plus, they can outbid you because they're going to sell the lead to 2 or 3, 4 other people. So
Right.
that lead's worth 4 times what you were willing to pay for it, because they're reselling it. So you got to play with them. You got to be part of that. Recently, I met a chief marketing officer for a big company that's almost $400 million in size, home improvement. They have several offices. But he was explaining to me the backdoor politics to the whole lead aggregator stuff. And the bigger companies get the leads first. And then
Absolutely. They're willing to pay more, right?
They run it
it's
through
volume discount, right?
Yeah. Well, but then they have the option to run it through their artificial intelligence program to tell them, is this customer a good fit based on past customers by zip code, demographics? They pretty much, in a blink of an eye, can know everything about that customer when that lead comes in, and in a fraction of a second, turn it back to the lead aggregator if they're big enough and get a credit. So the smaller companies then get the leftover.
The leftovers.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. That's what, and so that's the value in first party data. And unfortunately, not everybody knows how to, integrate that in. And that also can bring your your Google AdWords costs down. And again, I'll send you some info on that. But yeah, there's definitely some ways that at least you could bring some of that cost down. But the lead aggregator stuff, that's hard to compete with.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Background deals are very, very hard to overcome.
Well, and then they sometimes the big chief marketing officers are on the board for the company. That was another thing I found.
Yeah,
So,
and that's not a conflict of interest, right?
yeah, but it does lead to coalescing everything down to a few big companies. And
Yeah.
so, all the stuff that's happened in probably every other industry out there, it found its way into the home improvement industry. At one time I thought based on waterproofing, you'll never export that to China or Mexico because you got to have boots on the ground in the basement. And now that's the easy part. Getting the job done is the easy part. We're really good at that.
Right.
Yeah, it's how do you compete with marketing and bigger companies?
Yeah. All home services is going this way. So let's talk about that and why that changed and when you saw that shift, right? Because we were talking earlier and I was telling you about, our experience in HVAC and plumbing is private equity has come in to home services in a big, big way. And I know, here, one of our clients here in Charlotte just recently sold, he had a one here in Charlotte, one in PA, and sold to private equity. And they're getting very, very good multiples, right, for doing it. So tell me how it's changed in your industry and how when you saw this coming in and how it is today.
Forgive it was 2018 or 2019, but private equity company started going around and buying up the companies in the dealership that we are now part of, but we weren't part of. And these were huge companies. In each of the markets they were in, they were usually the dominant company. Atlanta, Chicago, whatever city they were multiple times bigger than their competitors. Then the head of the private equity company, he had a sizable bankroll from another deal he had closed on just recently. And he rolled that over and he bought company. He bought one of the dealerships straight out from somebody out in the south of the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he saw the value in these businesses. Like they were hidden gems
They are hidden gems still.
They're making over 20% net profit, these older companies.
Yeah.
And then, but even to top that off, this company had developed internal software to run the business, like all the leads and all the internal operations, and they had licensed it out to all the other dealers. So he got that software as part of the deal, and he had complete insight into everybody's business. How much are you ordering? How much are you selling? What's your metrics? What's your average dollar per lead sold?
Yeah.
And he systematically went around and picked off all these dealers and put it all together into one private equity company. And at the time, he reached out to us in 2019 when the bigger dealer in our area didn't want to sell.
Right.
And I thought to myself, well, this is a train wreck. Private equity running a basement waterproofing company, that's not going to work. They don't understand the first thing. This is a complicated business. I said, let me think about it. Well, I didn't even have time to think about it. The other company switched gears and sold to them. But so it isn't like we haven't had opportunities to sell. I just thought, what's the big deal? You're just going to run the business into the ground. I think back then my idea of private equity was tearing a company apart and selling it for its assets kind of stuff.
Right. Because that's what most people thought. Now it's not. Like you said, the delivery part of doing the actual job is the easy part now. It's having the systems and being able to get the leads in at a reasonable price that you can capitalize on and grow predictably.
Yeah. Like a company like ours or any of these companies, they couldn't afford somebody you're going to pay $250,000 to give them the title of chief marketing officer. But those guys are pretty good. If they're making $250,000 and they earn it and they're smart and they do smart things for these companies. So if you can have one person overseeing 10 or 20 offices.
Absolutely.
How do you compete with that? And so the individual owners or whoever's doing the marketing has to be really smart to even come close to competing. So now you're almost like maybe I can be second place in this market.
Yeah. Well, and Craig, what's happening, right? So I had a really good podcast interview 2 weeks ago, with a lady CEO in Chicago, and she has a consulting a services-based company, and then she built a product-based company. And right, so, and you'll follow the logic, right? So she's like, what if I created an umbrella corporation, right? A parent company that holds these two, but I pull all of the overhead, like HR and marketing, across at the top. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's what private equities do, right? Just like you said, they're pulling a CMO, right? They're pulling, the financial management of it, right? And all of that at a higher level. And they're spreading that cost across 10 or 20, right? And it makes it even like that drives everybody else's margin up, but it makes it hard to compete for the individual owners.
Yeah.
Right. Because you don't have that luxury unless you go, acquire it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exciting to see the industry do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we all in the industry I was in based on waterproofing, the value of your business was whatever you could sell your equipment for at auction when you retired.
Right.
I know lots of companies that closed up and that was just it. In fact, I went to some of their auctions. wasn't much to show for a lifetime.
Right. Well, and so now there's really good hope, right? When you do want to exit, that there is that door that wasn't, like you said, there's multiples being thrown out there, and that is an exciting place. So it's good to have those options. So let's switch gears a little bit about as you look down the next 1 to 2 years, right? It's hard to look any further than that, just the way everything's changing so quick. What do you see? Is it more consolidation in the industry? What do you see as AI and automations and consolidation, private equity? What do you see the industry doing over the next 1 to 2 years?
Definitely consolidation, because other private equity companies have come into our industry. And I know it has to be that way for other industries too. I can only speak to home improvement, but I'm sure it's everything.
Yeah, home services in general, for sure.
I have my friend's a dentist, and he said, there's hardly any more independent dentists anymore. They've all been bought up.
We work with a few dentists too. Yep. In California, They said the same thing. Private equity's coming in. Yeah.
Yeah. They own their business one day and they're an employee the next day.
Right. Well, and that's hard, right? So just pause there for 1 second before you give me your insights. And I want to make sure that everybody listening understands this, because Craig brought up a great point, is that the private equity, when they do it, they're retaining what they're trying to do is buy the future equity, right? Just like you would buy upside in a home that is in a good area, right? That is going to appreciate value. They feel like if they come in and they put their systems in place, that they're going to drive the value of the practice up. But when they buy, they're trying to buy and turn the practitioner into, and I'm just speaking for the dentist that I talked to the other day, actually yesterday, and he's like, they're trying to turn him into a W-2, and he loses all that equity, right? That future equity of being able to sell his practice at one point, right? So the same thing is happening in home services. They want to give multiples, but they don't want to give it all away, right? So that's the game that's going on right now. And I just want to make sure for everybody listening, especially if you're a founder in similar situations to Craig or Dr. Salim that we talked to last week, just that you have to be careful, right? Because private equity is in it to, they buy low, sell high, right? That's their whole thing. And so I want to make sure that everybody understands that that's a big decision point. And part of what we want to talk about next is that adding AI systems into place has already proven to up the multiple between 2 and 5. So before you go and take the private equity deal, right? Again, I'm speaking to the whole audience. Make sure that you do your homework, right? And know your options. That's all. That's the only thing that we're trying to do is educate on the podcast. So Craig, getting back to your vision, right? So consolidation, what else do you see?
Well, it's really comes down to leads and sales. And you can hire one good person to help you with sales. You can fix that problem pretty straight out.
Yeah.
That's the leads, the marketing. And it's not as simple as the old days with the yellow pages or a billboard or a TV ad. I mean, it was kind of limited. You have to understand connected TV, programmatic TV. You have to understand all your numbers. It's a numbers game. So you've got that problem to deal with. And an individual, someone like me, fortunately, I came from tech, but the numbers are too overwhelming.
Yeah.
But once you start to hire, we have to hire in higher level people into each position. They can't just be average people. If you have a marketing person on your team, it has to be a really high level person. But to afford that, you have to get a bigger company. You have to grow. Yeah. We've recently added the word home spec back into our company name, Home Spec Basement Fix, because we have to start accounting for the value of this customer over a lifetime. And the basement waterproofing, a one and done, we fix it. You'll never have to have another one. It's a lifetime warranty. But now we offer concrete leveling, gutters, leaf guards, just on and on. And so we need to focus more towards the home spec where we're not bottled into just basements, because we have to, if we don't grow to like these other companies that are $60 million, let's say, and we can't afford to pay people $250,000 to be a marketing person in our company, then we're not going to be able to compete. We're not going to, we could still be around, we could still be profitable, but our growth is going to be completely capped.
Yep. And so there's two ways to do that, right? And again, this goes for any industry, right? Not just home services, but what Craig and I are talking through, I want everybody to understand is that there's a couple options, right? So because I'm a big fan of being glass half full, right? So what are the options on the table? So one, right, is to look at your customer, like you said, the lifetime value of that customer. What else can I add to my services and serve that customer, right, to grow the lifetime value? And the second one is, which is kind of goes hand in hand, is can I make strategic relationships with things I don't offer, but we can cross-pollinate our customers, right? Like, can you partner with an HVAC company? Can you partner with a home remodel company where, that is your referral source and vice versa, right? When that customer calls, they know that they can trust this and they're going to get all their services under one roof, right? That's another way to look at it. Because that's how you have to be able to compete against private equity. If you're, going to hold down, you have to look at your customer holistically. And I love that you're doing it, Craig, because we've interviewed several people in the home services space and they're not thinking that way. So kudos. I love that you added home spec.
Yeah. If we were just selling roofs, let's say probably 1 out of 20 houses would need a roof in the Detroit area. Roofs don't last long around here.
Right.
But waterproofings, maybe 1 out of 1,000 customers need it. So we can only grow to a certain size. And then, so what some companies like ours have done, have expanded their geographical range. So they expanded further into the state or to the south. For us, it would be Ohio.
Right.
That's a rough road. And you're not taking your valued customers that you've done good work for that are willing to buy from you again. So I have to relearn whatever it is we want to bring in. But I'll tell you, it's a lot easier to learn how to do concrete leveling than it is to learn how to do expanded marketing. So, the easier path is for us to expand our services and keep our customers happy. And it sits better with me too. I'd rather not just blow through a bunch of customers and have a bunch of poor reviews.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. Yeah.
I'll tell you, these private equity people, a lot of them are younger. I've met them. They're young MBAs and
they're number crunchers.
They're sharp. They are fast. They don't know our industry, but they know the right questions to ask. And within 10, 20 minutes, they get to the root of how it's going to take to make this company bigger.
Yeah.
It's just like nothing to them. I got to think more like I don't have an MBA, but I need to think more like somebody with an MBA and not somebody with a jackhammer in my hand.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. Because the businesses now, like you said before, when it was Yellow Pages and it was, analog TV commercials and radio, it was more than billboards, right? It was more predictable and it was tougher to compete. When you go digital, everything becomes mathematical, right? Your cost per lead, your cost per acquisition, again, your cost per sale. And once you know those numbers, everything is mathematical, and then there's certain levers to increase each one. And that's how those MBA private equity guys look at things, right? They, it's really, you can have a simple spreadsheet. They know where the levers are, but that's only because things are digital and the numbers are predictable.
Yeah. Yeah. It blows my mind. Every once in a while, I'll hear an idea and it'll just blow my mind. I'll be like, okay, I don't even know how to compete with that. But an example of that is this person that's a chief marketing officer for a big company. He's kind of helping me out on the side. And he pointed me to the other company. And I said, okay, I talked to so many companies that do marketing. And like, what are they going to do? Do Facebook better or what are they going to do better? No, completely different. They run your Google ads, but when you get a click, it on the fly with artificial intelligence based on their search history that it knows about creates a landing page unique to them.
Yeah.
With the keywords that they search. And so, it used to be you could change the ad in Google ads to meet the same language that the person was searching for. I mean, that was like one breakthrough. This is like a whole nother level, like on the fly website creation.
And Craig, we remind me when we're end the podcast, it's called dynamic keyword insert. It's pretty easy to do. People don't know that it is, but you can easily do it. Yeah. So there's some really cool tricks to do that. Yeah. So I love that because really what you're doing is just trying to make the customer's experience better and on point to what they're interested in. And technology is advanced to the point where that part's really simple. It's not even really AI driven. It's just based on their search history and what they click through because all that comes from Google, right? The landing pages just can be dynamically created, right? With just some header inserts. But yeah, absolutely. I love that he's telling you that kind of stuff. So that's fantastic.
Well, and we have our employees spend a lot of time feeding data back into these engines as well, because the more information we backfeed to them, the better they get it. So Facebook can find similar.
Yeah, it's teaching the algorithm. Yeah, absolutely.
At first we were doing it manually, going in and saying this click resulted in X amount of dollars in sales. So, it's one thing to get a click and get a form filled out. That's one piece of information. But imagine the amount of value it is. This click resulted in $15,000 sale.
Yeah.
Now Google, presumably with Performance Max, can go back and better target your customers using this information. And Facebook is out of this world with information that you can use.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the way the ads work. If you can feed 50 sales back in, the algorithm has enough data to go figure. Yeah, absolutely. And you can do that automatically, right? That can always be done, right? You can automate a lot of that. So I love that you're getting all this because very few owners that we've talked about understand at that level. So I love that you're digging in. All right. So last two questions, right? One, tell me something Craig has done with AI that other founders and CEOs might find interesting.
I wrote a book on basement waterproofing.
Did you really?
Artificial intelligence.
Nice.
I got to clean it up and get it to print, but I was completely blown away how great a book it wrote. And the chapters that it picked, I couldn't have picked them better.
I love it. Once you get the table of contents in the book, I mean, the book kind of writes itself. It's like, if you spend a good time doing that, it's fantastic.
Yeah. I think I even learned a few things when I was reading.
Well, and so I've had 3 or 4 founders that have written books, right? In different areas, right? Not on basement waterproofing, first in basement waterproofing, but they're doing revision 2 or version 2, version 3 now, because they learned so much doing it. They're like, oh, what if I go and add this? Or what else can I add? How can I make it more lead generation friendly, right? How can I make sure that they come back to basementfix.com, right? Or get in contact or know or build more trust with us. So I can't wait to see how it plays. And then when you go back and you make some more revisions to it, because it's just natural. You're going to want to tinker with it because you're like, oh, I forgot to do that. I didn't know I can do that. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
Everybody can be an author now.
Yeah. Are you going to allow people to get it and download it from your site, or what's the thought process with the book besides getting it printed?
Well, currently the guy that started the dealership that we're part of, he wrote a book years ago. It's in print. I mean, you can buy it on Amazon, and we physically mail that book out to each customer after they book an appointment. It's like costs us like $17 just in overnight shipping.
Right.
Yeah, it's like $20 altogether, all in. So I don't know, maybe I'll include my book, something like that, because
Absolutely.
you need to build value for the salesperson when they show up. They need to know a little bit about your company. So that'd probably be the first thing. And I see Amazon has a lot of free, downloadable free books, and I'm sure
You can get it on Amazon. Yeah, you can get it on Amazon pretty quick. And then when you get it on Amazon or wherever you put it up, we'll put the link on below the podcast when this goes live. Very cool. All right, Craig. So if I give you a magic wand and you could fix one thing or clear one thing or do one thing to make you hit or exceed your 2025 growth goals, what would that be?
The thing, what I'm trying to crack is the code to optimal branding, like branding on somewhat of a budget, but how do I spend the money effectively and measure the results? I don't know how to measure results of our branding campaigns. We're running TV and we ran radio and did billboard in the past, but you're just putting the money out there and hoping for the best. So I feel like AI should be able to help, and I need to figure it out.
Well, we'll send you some resources for sure to help you, kind of steer that direction, because absolutely analytics wise, and certainly you can have trackable landing pages and trackable QR codes and all that kind of stuff, which help with that. But the other thing to think about is that branding and lead generation go hand in hand. And so my partner in our data company, he always says, he goes, you have to think of it as which swing of the axe in marketing not to tree down. It's all of them. So be careful not to scrutinize the branding to the level in which, you turn something off that actually was the starting point of that customer journey. And so that's a huge thing. But yeah, Craig, this has been fantastic. So tell everybody how to get in Southeastern Michigan, how to get in touch with Basement Fix. Again, we'll put all the links below when we go live.
Well, you can go to our website, basementfix.com, or 833-HOME-SPEC is our phone number. The last letter doesn't add any value, but it's still a phone number.
Exactly.
But yeah, we're also at homespec.com, but that just resolves over to Basement Fix.
Oh, all good. All good. So Craig, this has been great. Very enlightening. And I love having the home services guys on, because you guys are in uncharted territory with where private equity is coming. And it's not, like I said, it's not just you, the local medical, dentists, doctors, it's all elective medical. It's their private equities in all of it for all the reasons of all the problems you're trying to solve. So I think a lot of people will get a ton of value in watching this podcast and pulling it out about the challenges, but also the opportunities, right? Like you said, it's nice to have that second option of, if and when I want to exit, right? There's another strategy or another option that wasn't there just 4 or 5 years ago.
I'm telling all the young people I meet to look at private equity as a life career choice.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Get good at spreadsheets and algorithms and math for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Craig, thank you very much. This has been a delight. I can't wait to get this one live. And thank you for spending the time with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
If you're ready to embrace change and lead with innovation, be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Future Proof Podcast.